Can a few folks share with me what you want to talk about today? Okay, hold on. Anybody else? Any else? Death and loss? Okay. Yeah. Good. Go ahead. Oh. Okay, good. That's good. What? Oh, very. I thought you said fairies. I'm like, okay. Quite a variety. Liberation, being grounded, death through loss, joy, confidence, movement from the past. And I'm not naming them all, but that's an example of what everybody's requesting. And we're going to go into our talk. We won't do the mission statement today. So, you know, the work that we do here, I love the feeling of the work we're doing here. And one of the most consistent questions that comes up, although it wasn't specifically requested this time, it's almost every Sunday people ask about guidance, or more of a knowing of how to deal with life. And we have such a skewed and narrow view of life. These beings that are made in God's image beam down into these bodies and zip them up and call it themselves. And yet it's not us at all. It's just a disguise. It's this weird little thing. We zip it up like this strange suit and, pull in the belt and tighten up the tie and do all these things that are so constricting. One of you asked about movement, for example. None of these things allow us to move and be who we are. Why there is, in part, one of the main reasons there's such rampant mental illness in this world is because everybody's trying to be something they're not, which is mental, right? I mean, how can that not mess with your mind? Take a child, an animal for that matter, and keep trying to make it be something it isn't. How could it not lose its mind? So permission, movement, acceptance, not just start with the acceptance of who we're not. Accept that you have foibles. Accept that you have idiosyncrasies. Accept that you can't seem to make toast without burning it. It doesn't, so what? What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, what? You'll get charcoal in your system and it's good. It'll soak up toxins. That's a good thing, right? What else have you got to complain about? I'm not tall enough. That's great. It'll be cheaper on your casket. I mean, sorry. Hey, I just channel these things. These are not my fault. To not obsess all the time, obsessing on this stuff. Acceptance that you didn't make it to that job, the acceptance that you didn't make it into that college or whatever it is. So what? There's a Buddhist concept. Take things out to their worst scenario, and what have you got? Well, if I don't do this, this could happen. My car's not working. Because my car's not working, I couldn't get often enough to pick the kids up on time, and it wounded them. Now they grew up, and they might grow up, and they'll probably be failures. It'll be my fault. They won't be there to nurse me when I'm in my senior years. Geez, they're 3, and you're already at the end game with this bizarre made-up story. But the Buddhists are telling you, what's it for? Because if you can't change the problem, the situation, the crisis, then why worry about it? If you can't change it, what are you going to do? Let it go. And if you can change it, why worry about it? Change it. But it's a brilliant rationale. Why? So what? And I'm not saying to be careless in a hurtful way. I'm not saying use this to enable the inner ego that is worthless. I'm not saying don't get things done, don't show up on time. I'm just talking about worrying about these things. I love that word, that one that was asked, movement. And it was asked in a couple of different ways. And it's interesting because one of you's asking about grounding and one movement. They sound mutually exclusive, but they're not. Because it's like some people spoke about certain drug trips they would go on, and there was a phrase they used, which was always remain the witness. Never completely get lost in it. Know who you are experiencing something. Whether that's a drug trip, which I do or don't endorse, doesn't matter. Whether that's a drug trip or life. Because every day you walk out of your house, and even before you walk out of your house, you should know who you are. Be the witness of what you're doing. As Edgar Cayce put it, always watch self go by, which means watch yourself. What are you doing at any given moment? That's actually groundedness. Being self-aware is grounding. You're not up here kind of floating and never knowing where your feet are. You know, if people can walk in a room and say hi, and you jump every time, that's not really grounded. You know, to be present. And to be present, some of us that are thinking that we're spiritual think that grounding is a form of constraining us. It isn't. Grounding means you get to show up, and the more you show up fully, the more you can be a full expression of not only yourself, God. Not being grounded. It's not floating in the ethers, head in the clouds, that makes you spiritual. Balance, 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 balance. If you picture it like chakras, think of chakras because they're so misunderstood, but here's a great analogy. Think of yourself in this thing that you zip up and it creates darkness because there's this beautiful light inside that wants to shine, but it can't because this thing is zipped around it called a mortal body. Now, chakras are kind of like putting punching holes where the chakras are. Now, if a person is in this body and they're a being of light, but they've zipped it around, it's dark. Now, hole punching where the chakras go, picture this as an art. Technically, would you think that it's more spiritual for these lights that should now be beaming out, right? Pure light beaming out of any where we're hole punched where there's a chakra. Would you imagine that it would look best if all of the lower ones were dim and the upper ones were bright? Or vice versa? Or every other one is bright, every other one is dark. Just on an elementary level, you know that fully all the chakras beaming brightly and equally would probably make the most sense. There you go. Balance. Don't allow misunderstood or misused spiritual studies convince you that upper chakras only is the way to go. There are a lot of indigenous tribes that would laugh at that notion. They'd be like, get in your body, you know. Ancient cultures, they never tolerated that. Balance, 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 balance. The king, warrior, magician, and lover, or the queen and the equivalent. Balance. In the ancient temples, when you said, I want to be spiritual, I want to be a master. Oh, okay, well, welcome. You know, first we want vows of silence. What do you want? What do you mean silence? Shh. But I don't want to be silent. Shh. You're trying to control me. Shh. Well, I'm not going to tolerate this. Get out. So some self-discipline. And then like the Essenes, they did sometimes a year of silence. Really amazing sect of people. But then there was fasting. Oh, I was really being spiritual until you brought up the fasting thing, you know. I don't know if I can do it. I want a Butterfinger. You know, like, you know, just can't just stop and sort of separate yourself from the ego so that you can be present, you know. So there's all these vows. And in the ancient cultures, oh my God, you know, you go to these Egyptian temples and other temples. In you go, and then this big stone door, boom. How long do you go before you go, I can't breathe? I'm claustrophobic. Let me out. Like you fail and fail and fail. In those days, you're walking and you got to know where you are because there's a pit of alligators. So know your feet. Don't just go, oh, I just feel so spiritual being in this dark temple with a torch, you know, and everything's peachy. No, you know, you got to be present. If you don't hear, there's sometimes in these temples, there'd be guys swinging down on a cord, flailing a sword at your head. And if you went, oh, I'm just so in the ethers, whack, and you have to try this in another lifetime. This is how serious spirituality was taken once upon a time. There's no messing around. Well, we may not have it to that level of seriousness, that's, let's call it external initiations. But human beings, we will never be able to say, not to take it serious at all, in the sense that internally now more than externally. Take it seriously. In other words, show up. Live it. Don't take it serious in terms of judging yourself for every flaw, failure. I'm just saying, devote. Let's devote ourselves to something great, to being what God created us to be. And this consistent challenge, there's this thing about, Michael, how do we know if it's God's voice or the ego's voice? How do we know, that kind of questioning? How do we know? And several of you are going through this a lot right now. How do I know? And it's interesting because, first of all, only God's voice is real. That doesn't really help because I hear all these different guidances and voices, and God's voice is real, but okay, that didn't totally help me yet. Okay. And God is only love. So when you're hearing guidance that feels like real love, both, it's probably God. Now, don't get me wrong. There are psychopaths that have killed people and said, I heard a voice tell me that it's the most loving thing to do. Doesn't mean it's the right thing. So it doesn't guarantee. But the problem is this. Mankind has forgotten how to recognize what's real and what's loving. We can, through the ego, because the ego just keeps dressing up anywhere you go. You can say, I'm going through sadness. The ego will show up there and I know what you mean. Oh gosh, you're really sad. Yeah, sadness. Oh, let's really sink into this sadness because this world is too hard for us. Just to ruin you. And then you come out of that and go, wait, I'm not sad anymore. I'm angry. I know what you mean. It'll just keep moving. The voice of the ego will keep changing with the weather and with your moods. Why? Because it just wants to mess you up constantly. God's voice is consistent. Just love. God never changes that. Now, mind you, even love could be multifaceted, but it isn't multi-personality disorder. It's just love. Now, the love might be patient today. The love might be generous today, but it's love. The ego, it fully shifts anger, and it'll even do false forms of love. Aren't we the most patient people we know? Person we know. Aren't we? Oh, I'm there for you with agendas. I mean, so the ego doesn't just stay like where you say God is loving and ego is. That's the tricky part. That's another reason why we can't tell love from fear, love from hate. Because the ego will dress up as false versions of love. So we're really in a pickle. Because can we say that we fully know love? All we can say is you have to start somewhere. We have to say, look, you know what? I'm going to start living this life. I'm only interested in one voice, and it's the voice of love. And this is very, very practical. Only the voice of love. So if you hear and you think, well, when I hear an inner critic say, you got an A on your test, but you could have got an A+. Maybe that sounds like the voice of love. Well, honey, that you got an A, good job, but you could have gotten an A+. That could be construed as love. I mean, your parents were sometimes psycho and always told you they loved you. So that's confusing. I don't know what love looks like. I had a partner. They said they loved me. They cheated on me, but they loved me. I'm confused. I had parents. They said they loved me, and yet they always came first, even when it looked like they made me come first. Really, they came first. You see? When they were in a bad mood, they took it out on me. That means they came first. So we're very confused about the program, we could call the software, of what love is because the ego has already hijacked it and corrupted the files. So we have the ego gets to do all fear and hate-based things and all pseudo-love-based things. And there's this one voice, the voice of love, that's just very consistent. The ego is not consistent at all other than it's consistently inconsistent. It's consistently messed up. It's consistently going after to mess up your life. So we have to start somewhere. Instead of saying, okay, there's this technique now I always know the voice of God versus, it's not going to be like that. On earth especially. Most thoughts are going to be hijacked or attempted to be hijacked by the ego. You can sit, you can meditate only on the word love. The ego is sitting right there going, oh, really? You think you're just going to ignore me? And you'll go, no, shh, love. Yeah, everybody told you they love you. They don't really love you. Love, you're gaining weight. Love. It's not easy to just walk this. But don't think you can just ignore it. You have to choose a few things. You have to choose not to listen to it. You have to choose to know that voices of fear and angst are not of interest to you. You have to actually own that. You have to see them, dissipate them. Choose to say, I'm not interested. Set it aside. We'll do this as a meditation in a moment. Set it aside. Then choose what you really want. Love. So if you're walking through your house and you walk by a mirror and, oh, I'm getting older, just stop for a moment. That voice is not the voice of love. I mean, do you really need to be told that? Many people still do because there's so much confusion. Well, maybe that is the voice of love telling me I should take better care of myself. That's not the voice of love, which will say, wow, look at you, you're amazing. Not egotistically, hey, you're amazing. It's not like some, corrupt magic mirror on the wall. Tell me who's the hottest. You, of course. Thank you. That's not what I'm talking about. It's interesting because almost all guidance related to you as a person, your looks, your emotional, intellectual, or physical statuses, including finances, whatever else, almost anything that is form-based is of the ego. Even if it's, well, I'm hearing a voice that says, I should lose weight and tone up, and then I'll look and feel better. It's still of the body. You're not a body. So it's still sneaking in. It's still the ego sneaking in. Now, I'm not saying, well, thanks, Michael. Now I'm not allowed to have any thoughts. I'd like to have some breakfast, but that's of the body. So I'm not going to eat. Thanks, Michael. And you just shrivel away, Thanks. Now I'm just thinner with but I'm aware of it. Thanks. That helped. You like that one, huh? Remember, Buddha, fasting. And he just was so emaciated, just wow. And then he comes out of this meditation, one of the many insights that he shares, and just goes, it occurred to me as I was hearing this person play sitar that the strings can't be too loose, they can't be too tight. There's a middle ground. The middle ground. There you go. And he came out of meditation and said, hey, let's have lunch. His apostles are like, oh my God, he's lost his mind. He's going to eat. Let him speak and say, thanks, but I'm not interested. Eat. It doesn't matter. He ate holistic foods, Ayurvedic foods. He didn't eat the right, doesn't matter. In that moment, he was enlightened in a sense. So now any food he eats becomes lightened because you're in a state of light. What matters is our state of consciousness. So God's voice is almost always the one speaking to your consciousness. Ego is almost always relating everything to your physical, emotional, and mental health, intellectual health. That's one way to know what voice you're hearing. And it's hard to always have it down. It doesn't matter. Just relaxing and doing the best we can. So when you walk through a room and a song comes on the radio and you're singing along, then you went, oh, wait a minute. This is the song so-and-so and I shared back in high school. And then they dumped me. And you start going, stop. Is that the voice of love? Well, I don't know. Maybe. No, it isn't. Because if you could measure your psychological, spiritual health in that moment when you started going song, history, heartbreak, and you could measure it, it would not be high on the meter. It would be like singing a song, this is great. Ooh. That's what would happen if you could see that. And human beings with so much trauma, so much layering, so much numbing, so many blocks, we've forgotten to know how we feel. Some people will say, by Michael, Michael means by feel is your gut. No, it's higher than that. Deep in your heart, there's a thing that can measure you're dropping and you don't even know it. Some people think that a high is stimulus oriented. like I feel great now that I told that person what I think of them. That's stimulus. That's not happiness. Both feel up, but one is a high and a crash, a hangover. The other one is a high, and it is high, and it stays high because you're high in consciousness. So it's obvious when we're generous, when we're loving, when we're patient, when we're forgiving. I mean, there it is. You can just tell. I can tell that I feel, holistically speaking, I can tell that I feel up. I feel alive. I feel awake. That's great. And remember this. When we talk about the voice of God, Michael, how can I learn to hear the voice of God? The voice of the ego or God, you'll recognize in your thoughts. If you're having a positive thought, you're actually hearing the voice of God. Think about that. Forget about waiting for Michael, or your name's Sue. I'll sue him. No, it was you. Your name is Sue. How do you do? So, we mix it up. The ego's going to always mess up what we're hearing. But first, your thoughts. When you have a little thought about, there's a new gray hair. There's another wrinkle. Oh, I gained 5 pounds. Oh, I'm this or I lost my job. I didn't get the raise. Whatever it is, anything. The car that you wish you had a different car. Any of it. Just stop, and it becomes obvious. I'm having thoughts that I don't like my car. I'm saying to you, that's actually the voice of your ego dominating your soul today. Take it seriously enough not to down on yourself, but take it seriously enough to see it and say, with every thought comes karma, effects. So if I'm having negative thoughts about my car, I'm actually creating a boomerang effect that's going to come back at me. Yes, the obvious. That car could break down. Then you're on the side of the road, 120 degrees in Arizona somewhere, and you're like petting it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. And it's too late. Well, oh money pod me. You're trying all these quick fix spiritual things, and it isn't working, and you're wondering why. Done. Okay? Sometimes it's done. That thing's done. It's better to catch ourselves. So here's the tricky part. We'll know that if you're physically or emotionally off, that's not the voice of God that sent you off. That's the karmic effects of something that you thought. And when your thoughts are negative, it's the karmic effect of what you believed in here. So it's very important not to use these things to beat yourself up, but to use them to redirect you. If I see in my thoughts or anything else, any other places of evidence in this world, if I see that something's showing me evidence that I'm off today, I need to pause. I can do that. It's choice. It's free will. I can pause and say, there's something here that's showing me that I have not been listening to the right voice. The voice of God. I'll know when that thing turns around. We call it a miracle. But really, it's very organic. When I make the right voice, when I allow the right voice to guide me, I'm going to naturally feel great. When I allow the ego's voice to guide me in any way, I'm going to naturally spin off. All of them, however, are signposts to learn from. That's all. They're like test results. How am I doing today? Well, I'm doing pretty good. And I'm really grateful that I'm doing good. I'm not like him. You just went off. Do you understand? By thinking that person's off or that person's, even my thinking they're physically sick, it's not my fault. They had test results. They are sick. My belief that you are anything than holy is actually not the voice of God. Well, what do I do then? I mean, do I just pretend everything's peachy? No, everything is actually peachy. You're not pretending. Just start aligning with that everything is okay. What if I align that I'm okay and I'm in a bed in a hospital and I pass away and I don't get healed when I started changing my thinking? You died with a right mind. You're actually better off than living with a wrong mind. Get your act together. Get your mind together. Get your consciousness in the right place. I've said this before, but one of the most consistent teachings amongst, like from Zarathustra to Jesus to Buddha, Lao Tzu, one of the most consistent things you hear all of them say, almost verbatim, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. stay in the God mind. So in a sense, it's like there's God's voice and there's our many voices. And that's multiple personality disorder. I know there's a clinical thing called MPD, but I'm saying everybody has it. As soon as you think you're more than one with God, you're in multiple personality disorder. Even if you only have two, that's multiple. But everybody's got more than 2 and 3 and 10. And the ego's just shifting with every mood because we identify with every mood. We think that's us, which is called multiple personality. We identify with sadness. We identify with anger. You may not like that you identify, but we fully carry it. We fully embody it. I'm so mad and it's their fault and so on and so on. I know that people act hurtfully. I'm not saying pretend they didn't. Just identify that when you got mad at them for being hurtful, that wasn't the voice of God. Don't hate yourself for it. Just see it. Wow, this is interesting. So I can sit here and not be ashamed that I absolutely loathe that person. They're just so annoying. Yeah, own it. All I'm asking you to do is add something. They are annoying. There's 50 different ways. I can make a list. Here, I'll type it up on a Word doc. That makes it real. You know, I'll carve it in a cement and make it real. This is the 50 trespasses of my ex. Boom, 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 boom. All I'm saying is for you to own it and say, but that isn't the voice of God, because it isn't. And if it's not the voice of God, let me go through a few steps. This is not the thought I would have. This is not the voice I want to hear. It isn't. Not, I wish I didn't have these thoughts. But, alas, they were so annoying. They've got me stuck in this belief system of theirs. No, just own. Yes, they're annoying. It's okay for you to be vicious about it for a moment. But just ask, and is that the voice of God? No. Is that the voice that's going to make you happy? No. Start with that. Secondly, that's not what I want to follow. What I want to follow is the voice of love, the voice of God. Choose to surrender that. It doesn't matter if you can prove they're annoying. You can get all the neighbors to sign, petitions, and we all agree that one neighbor's annoying or whatever you're going to do. Your ex, all your family members, and their family members all agree. They're annoying. Yeah, we got it. You are not going to be happy because the karmic effects, I'm not saying you're bad. I'm saying the karmic effects of having those thoughts, you're actually listening to the guiding voice of the ego or of fear or of hate. And it brings with it karmic effects. Are you okay with that? Yes. Okay. Knock yourself out with that cement slab, preferably, that you wrote all the person's trespasses on. Knock yourself out. I'm not saying you're bad or wrong. I'm just saying it will bring unhappiness. There's no doubt about that. Cause has effect. I insist on hating this person or being angry at them, whatever the word would be. And it's going to bring karmic effects. Doesn't matter how much you can justify it. In fact, there's worse karma by me hooking in other people. Listen, I want to confide with all of you that, I don't mean to upset your minds, but I got this person in my life. You know what they did? And you're all sitting there going, oh, and you're such a nice guy and you're a spiritual teacher. How dare them? Nice. I've now hooked in thousands of people around the world into hating someone. I'm going to have the effects of that. He who drags others into their quicksand is going to pay for all of them, all of their passage into Hatesville. And it's going to be lifetimes of paying for that. Do I really want to keep that? No, what I mean to say when I say that I'm annoyed or whatever, what I really mean to say is I'm upset and I don't know what to do about it. That's all I can say, because that's true. I can't say that they're actually a bad person because that's not how God sees them, and only God is real and only God is loving and love is God. So anything else is going to be a deviation and untruth. All I can really say is right now, I just don't know how to get to the truth. I don't know how to get to love. This has upset me. That's sincerity, and it's bringing it to the altar. It's humility. We surrender it and ask to have it turned around. Because what you really want, if you could snap your finger and totally feel love versus hate, fear, regret, and revenge, you would do it. People would do it. But we've been programmed to no longer remember what love feels like. True love. The closest most human beings get is romantic love, which is going to just mess you up anyway. Because romantic love is just all twisted. It's all possessive and it's so strange. Even if you love somebody with the deepest parts of what you think is your heart, which it isn't, but the deepest parts of your dysfunctional ego-based self, they're going to die at some point. Someone's going to die or leave or move, and you're going to be heartbroken again. That can't happen in real love. Real love. It's a frequency. It's not just an emotion. It's not a human emotion. It's a frequency. And when we're in that frequency, we just feel immune. And even that comes with an owner's manual, in a sense. Because even with that, this state of pure love, like right now, if I just waved my hand and granted everybody a state of pure love, I guarantee many of you won't make it out the door with it. And if you do, you go to the grocery store and something's going to go haywire there. Like you can just walk down the aisle carrying this, I'm just in awe of love and life. Oh my God. Somebody walks by, and you're like, hi. And they're like, did you see them? They're hitting on me. How inappropriate, at the grocery store. And because you're glowing, I mean, God, my first trip overseas on a sacred sites trip, I came back and I was just glowing. I had gone to Medjugorje, the Mother Mary's visitations there, and sitting with the children, talking to one of the girls, the kids that was having the visitations, having a great pyramid and all kinds of great things. I came back and I'm glowing, and people were just like, knock it off. They were like, you got this smile on your face. Who do you think you are? And I'm a bit of a sensitive human being, so that I took that to heart. It kind of hurt to have this slap, slap, slap constantly, and it kind of took me down several notches. Okay. Part of me stayed sane. Part of me just said, my love is for those who can see it and those who can feel it. If you don't, fine. Then don't. I just chose to preserve some sanity around that topic. But it shouldn't happen that we get beat down when we're holding a space of love. But this world is designed to do that. So how can I stay sane? God. How do I stay connected to God? Following God's voice. But I don't hear that. I mean, Moses, didn't he hear like an actual voice? Hey, listen, whether it's an actual auditory voice, a feeling, or whatever else, just remember, it's much simpler. It's so simple. But human beings have forgotten to know real from false and love from fear. So how are they going to know how to listen to God's voice? Honestly, start where you are and listen. You have to not just, where's God's voice? Where's meditation? Waiting. Stop. Just walk through your house, go through your life. When you hear a voice that has some sense of intensity or judgment, identify, oh, wait, there's that moment. That would not be God. Learn to identify what's not love and identify what is. Give thanks for every time you identified love. Because when you heard, felt, thought love, you actually heard the voice of God. So somebody else can say, oh, I was in meditation, or I have a friend who they said they meditated once. They actually heard the voice of God. Don't make it like a rare, once in a blue moon, only two gurus in the Far East to hear God's voice. Every time any of us ever had a positive thought, a thought of hopefulness, hope, healing, positivity, that is the voice of God. The ego, though, is going to make you think even that is not so that you never hear or feel or know anything. Let's start owning it. Every hopeful thought, every moment of generosity, that's the thought of God, but that's the voice of God. And I want to add, you and I could sit now and say, okay, I got this talk. This is wonderful. I'm going to start kind of filing. That was not a loving thought, and that was a loving thought. Great. The ones that are loving, I give thanks. What do you do with the ones that aren't? See them for what they are. Give them up and replace them with the ones that are. Do something with them. Don't hide them. Don't sweep them under the rug. Okay, there's one of those. That's not God. It's so easy. Oh, wait, that would not be God. You know, well, you are getting older, whether I am or not. This isn't me. The body's getting older. Great. So now what? Well, you know, with that comes what? Wait a minute. Interrupt it. Wait a minute. This is not love. See it. Be a master and see it. That would not be love. When you're driving down the street, oh, look at them. That would not be love. You know, your teeth aren't bright enough. That would not be love. My kids, they never amounted to anything. I sent them to college and they still, you know, didn't amount to anything. That would not be love. Right? It's just see it. And surrender it to God, to the mother. Hey, you know, funny thing happened on the way to the store today. God, there I was driving, just minding my own business. And then there was one of those kinds of people walking down the street. How could I not notice them? They're so annoying, whoever they are, that thing, you know. And I caught myself. That was not the voice of God coming through me, identifying that person. It can't be, because God wouldn't say, right, at a human being. So it wasn't. So I'm, giving this to you, God. Help me to see everyone through your eyes. That's not going to happen automatically. You have to choose it. You don't die and become illuminated like some people think. I can't wait. You know, when I die, I'll become you're just going to be you again, a dead you. You're just on the other side. You're just the same annoying person without a body who's going to long for a body so that you can physically be annoying as well. And you'll come back and incarnate again. You're just still you. If you don't know how to listen to the voice of love here, you don't on the other side just get it. You're shown it. And even if you go, oh, now I get it. The voice of love. I thought he said the voice of a dove. I missed that. Sorry. They're not going to go, oh, well, hey, everybody. Listen, they got it now. They're not going to all go, oh, namaste, so wonderful. They're going to be, now must go. Back to earth. Back to earth you go, and you got to live it. You got to prove it. If you don't live it, embody it, it's only a theory. Oh, God, you're kidding me. Okay. So back you come. And they'll say, oh, you were so excited. What happened? Well, the family you gave me, this is too much, you know. Never. Your tests, as intense as they can be, for some more than others seemingly, they're always within your ability to turn this around. The voice of love, believe it or not, learns to say yes to love and no to non-love, which means if there are non-loving things happening in your life, you're not supposed to go, oh, loving voice is always yes. No, it isn't. The loving voice can say no. I don't care what it is. No, not today. I don't have to hate you to say no to you, but I feel a lot of anxiety, so that must not be the right voice. That's because you're afraid of listening to love. You're not feeling anxious because saying no to your children was the wrong decision. It's because you're afraid you're going to lose their love or something. And in fact, you're going to gain. So that's where it becomes gray area, not because it's truly gray, but because we're so programmed, even viscerally, neurologically programmed to be confused by this. Codependence, the most rampant of all addictions, codependence will keep us from knowing the right decision. So sometimes you do have to step back. Let me breathe for a moment. To know whether this was the right, telling my kids no or partner no or whatever it happens to be. After all, I mean, if I'm in a relationship, let's say I have a business partner and the business partner's stealing all the funds and I'm going broke because of that. Well, I just need to forgive them and say, yes, they can keep doing that. No, because it's enabling which continues more ego and more karma. So I can say no but I don't know how to say no without, I might have to get a lawyer. Get a lawyer. Pray for a good one. Yeah. Pray for a good one. Get in there. Okay. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Just ride in there on the chariot like Krishna. Just shoot the arrows, let them fall where they may. Trust in God. What a great imagery, man. Krishna. Just shoot the arrows. Leave it to God as to who's going to catch it, I just think, but that sounds strange and cold, but there's a brilliance to that. He doesn't mean kill people and leave it to God. He's saying you can't actually do anything to anyone that isn't participating with that. And I know that's a strange concept for some, but again, it's okay to say no. Especially if you're uncertain, then own it. Say, God, I'm afraid of being unloving by saying no to something. I'm afraid. I feel anxiety. Talk to the mother. Let her hold you like you're a child. Let her hold you and love you and say, honey, I know. But mommy, I'm afraid. It's kindergarten time. I'm going to go to school, but I want to be with you. Am I letting you down? You see, even then I'm anxious about leaving my mother for her and for me. This is strange. It's different. That doesn't mean it's wrong to go to school, but you're feeling anxious about it. So surrender the anxiety, and mom can say, actually, we can make this into a beautiful thing. How about we think of it as like you went to watch your favorite TV show, except it's school. So you went to school. When your TV show's done, what do you usually do? I tell you what I watched today, mommy. Great. Go to school. Tell me what you watched today when you come back. You see? Find a way to navigate these things instead of being so stringent on ourselves with these, against ourselves. If you see that you're not making as much money this year, you got more taxes or whatever, we're all going to get tempted to spin off. But remember, is that a loving thought? What does love have to do with accounting? Everything. Are you feeling love? You can say, well, I cheat on my taxes because I don't think they deserve my money. And you say, but that's not loving or unloving. This is a conversation about money and accounting. No, it's not loving because love is for all. Love is trusting, right? So that means I can trust that if I pay taxes, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make 3 times what I gave them or whatever, right? So we get all twisted, not know what direction to go. We get so, because of these programs, the voice of God is real and the voice of God is loving. So real love is real and God is real. Real love, follow that voice and recognize, one of you asked about liberation. Oh my God, how is that not connected? I want to feel liberation. You cannot feel liberation if your mind is imprisoned. If your soul is imprisoned how? Where? Resentment is a prison. And some of you are hearing this going, oh God, he's one of those guys that says, forgive all those people that horrendously harmed you. I'm not telling you that flippantly. Forgiveness, it goes through stages. So don't think I just told you, resentment is a prison and you just have to let it go. When I know that you believe that this has been harmful, what people have done to you. I don't think it's right that people have done those things to you. And I know it wasn't their God self that did it. But you can choose to no longer be imprisoned with them in that cell, that jail cell of hatred. They passed their darkness to you. Anybody that's ever been hurtful to you has passed a certain amount of darkness. Whether they were family members, there's genetic darkness. Whether they're partners, there's cellular darkness, shared intimately, and so on. Even if it's just conversationally, you get hooked into this sort of thing. And it could be in the grocery store or on the street, on the freeway. And people they're going to try to hook you because the ego wants major numbers of collateral damage. It wants everybody to pay for this. The parents arguing and the children pick that up, right? That's the ego's way. God's way is just love. So it's kind of like saying, wait, Instead of just, Michael told me I'm supposed to forgive all the, wait, you will forgive. But the forgiveness doesn't mean you're saying what they did is okay. What I'm speaking about when I say forgiving them or releasing resentment, I'm talking about shifting your mind from, because the ego can make you easily a victimizer or a victim. The ego can move into any one of those two. Just because you're the victim doesn't mean you're holy and the victimizers are bad guys. Either one of those is not love. And I want love. So I'm shifting today. Yes, people did some harmful things to me or to you, whomever. Got it. And today, I'm not going to make that go away. I'm just going to say that is not love. What they did and how I feel about it, neither is love. I'm going to give that to God and I'm going to choose love. Just that is enough to help you come to your own understandings about forgiveness and imprisonment by resentment. You don't have to follow somebody else's rules about resentments and releasing resentments. It'll happen in your own time, in your own way. Before you know it, the first major thing you're going to experience is, I don't feel as hooked by them or their behavior. It's weird. I didn't sit down and do any major releasing and forgiveness, which is good to do, but I didn't even do that. And yet I don't feel that's a good sign. You'll notice that when you think of that person, you don't start getting like this weird nausea. You don't get, your shoulders don't shrink up to your ears in tension. It's like, wait a second. I was sitting with some friends today and I was telling them about this. For some reason, something came up with my mom and I realized I went through that conversation like it was nothing. I used to not be able to speak about that woman, you see? There's a shift. The power has returned. Your consciousness has come back. Because when we're resentful, our consciousness is put on hold, pause, sleep mode. And our head starts running the show. Okay? Our head, controlled by the ego, starts running the show. Oh my God, I'm back. I see things differently. I feel things differently. Everything starts to shift. It's really, really beautiful. But this too shall pass. The resentments, the hurts, the pains. Take it a day at a time. But I am saying, don't just wait for it to, it will not happen on its own. It is by our efforts. And every time you can be an example of that, you're teaching only love. Honestly. When I'm saying start watching yourself. Just notice when that wasn't a very loving thought. And there's lots of them. Tens or hundreds of thousands per day. Don't worry about how many. The Holy Spirit will start lassoing and clustering them and releasing them in groups because it's so efficient. It won't be like, okay, Michael's at 100,000. Are you serious? 100,000 times today I'm supposed to go, there you are, got it, God, holiness, oh, which will look weird to people in a grocery store. Oh, oh, look, sugar frosted flakes. Oh, the calories. Wait, I'm negative thought. Wait, God, give it. Oh, I can eat anything. Let me go to the hummus aisle, No, just start the day with a commitment. And I am serious about that part. Make a commitment to not listening to the voices of fear, hate, resentment, etc. Don't think they're 3 a day. They're all through the day. But God's voice is also speaking to me all through the day. I'm just not hearing it. Do you know why? Because I'm not choosing to hear it. And it's not going to be as easy to choose the voice of God if you don't choose not the other one, which some people don't understand. We have to grow up. For example, you go to a personal coach, they don't just say, start lifting these weights. If you want to tone up and do those kinds of things, they're going to also tell you what not to do. If you're going to a chiropractor and your back's messed up, they can just keep adjusting it, but they might also tell you to change your posture, right? There's that. There's things you must stop doing. And the best way to choose to stop doing it is to see that it's not serving you. You can't just, I need to stop, bad. No. Wait a minute. Rational thinking, as Buddha puts it, and as Jesus puts it in teachings, rational mind. That is not helpful. That thing, that guidance, that voice, that thought is not helpful. That is actually judging myself or judging someone else. It's always judging someone else or ourselves. I see it. That is not the voice. Not only am I not choosing that voice because it's not happiness, I'm also choosing against it. Goodbye. Don't fight it. Just see it and choose to see it is valueless to you and give it up. Don't think of it as an evil enemy. Valueless. Worthless. Give it to God. What would I like instead? The voice of love. And just let that, call it in and give thanks. Be done. The voice of love. You don't have to sit and wait for it. Just call it in, because you might only have seconds in the day to do this. But just call it in. You'll be beautifully surprised how an hour later, for no reason whatsoever, you feel tranquility. A day and a half later, you feel a peace that surpasses understanding. Those things don't just get tossed on you from the heavens. They have to be chosen. You want to feel peace, you want to feel self-worth, stop allowing the voice to the contrary and choose the one that is what you said you wanted. Some people will say, don't even focus on the ones you don't want. That's not true. You have to choose against them and retire them because you created them. They are your voices. You have to uncreate them, release them. That's the full creation process. Choose no to something, choose yes to something new. Okay? Please take a few centering breaths. I am on the inhale, relaxed on the exhale. With an inhalation, tighten up all the muscles in the body. Exhaling every muscle. Relaxed, decompressed. Do that 3 times. Try to notice muscles that you didn't notice when you do tense. New back muscles, muscles around the ribs, muscles in the shoulders, the neck, the feet. Just find those. Tense them up. You're recognizing that's not what you choose, and exhaling. And then stand back in your mind objectively, looking over the day, the week, the month, the year, just whatever's coming to mind, and just looking over your life, and try to see if you can recognize any moments that were the voice of God. Remember, thoughts are voices. Anytime when you had a negative or positive, in this case, we're going to start with the positives. But learn to see the positives or negative voices. So, there are any times in your life when there were positive voices, meaning positive thoughts, where you let yourself off the hook for something, you decided not to be so harsh on yourself or someone else, thoughts of generosity, gave your time to help, you served others in some way, you supported or complimented someone. any place that you gave hopefulness to people, see it. But this isn't just about good job. This is, can you say, that was the voice of God coming through me? Try that on for size. That was actually the voice of God. When I told someone that I knew they would be okay with that situation they were going through, everything will be all right. That wasn't me. That wasn't just me trying to be positive for them. It was the voice of God. And identify that in your heart and soul. That was owning in your heart. That was the voice of God. Are you okay with that? Do you feel selfish or negative thoughts about owning that? Some people do. Can you just go, oh my God, I was being a channel of the voice of God. Not just because of my positive words. I had to have chosen to be in a positive, God-like mindset. Wow. And let it kind of unravel inside of you like a time-released capsule. It breaks open and you're owning it. Those weren't just good moments. That was the voice of God. Jeez, wow, amazing. The voice of love. Give thanks that you listened and channeled that and made it a difference in someone's life. Just sit in, it's not a selfishness, it's just sitting in the vibe of gratitude. I am very grateful that my mind was open to receiving and sharing that thought/voice of God or of love. Then looking into our world, any time, whether it was one time dramatically or a pattern of times with certain people, certain types of people, or a certain person, where you had negative thoughts, including on yourself, just sit and look at your life. Where have I had negative thoughts? Selfish thoughts, hurtful thoughts, resentful thoughts, judgmental thoughts, whatever the case. Even fears are negative thoughts. Look at where those may have taken place. Don't forget, a moment ago, you knew what God looked like or felt like. Now, look at the contrast. Look at what your thoughts, if you verbalized all negative thoughts about yourself or others, imagine it as a frequency. Let's go there for just a moment. What if your negative thoughts, even one here and there, look at the frequency. Look what it does to the animals around you. Animals can smell other animals in your system that you've eaten. They also can sense your thoughts and your emotions. When you're in the negative thoughts, what are those animals feeling? What are children feeling? What are babies absorbing by being in the same room with a person that has such thoughts? That is not love. No need to react, just see it. It's not love. The birds fly to get away from you because they sense something to be afraid of. Children reach for their mother because there's something they see there when we're being unloving. People's auras constrict. Our own spiritual centers tend to shut down, as do the glands they're related to. The negative thoughts. But also, there is an inner child in everyone why would you want to do that to a child that's in you? Negative thoughts. Well, this is just a small negative thought. It doesn't matter. It all matters. So, see it. Make a conscious decision of what you're going to do with this. You're having thoughts that are not God, not love, and not serving you. So take a moment, do that first. This is not a loving thought. This is not serving me. Recognize what you are not and what you choose not. Step 2. Say to yourself, I desire to hear only God's loving voice. I choose only to hear God's loving voice and no other. There's no interest and no value in other voices. Ask yourself, anytime these thoughts come, is that loving? Try it as an experiment with any thoughts you've had the last week or month. Wait, is that loving? Even on your way, your drive into town, is that loving? No matter how justified you think it is, it's not the point. Is that loving? Now I know there's a difference between the loving and non-loving voices. Can I really recognize? I'm going to commit to practicing this. Is that loving? For one more moment, sit and look at one or more. Just let them all group together. All of my unloving thoughts throughout my life and lifetimes, not just today, all of my unloving thoughts. And even if you have just one come up, try saying something along these lines. This voice is not loving, and therefore it is not of God. Therefore, it's not real. Therefore, I have no interest in it. So I surrender these thoughts to my loving God. And I choose God's voice instead. And every time we do that, which could take seconds, every time we do that, remember, give thanks. Give thanks. You accomplished it. I'm giving thanks that I spotted what isn't love. I'm giving thanks that I now own that I want love. I'm giving thanks that I'm starting to choose that love and that I surrendered all else. But I'll add this. When you give thanks, try to give thanks with elation. Yes, get it, an elation. But also, oh my God, I spotted this, I gave it up, I'm calling in the presence of God and God's voice. And with that comes good karmic effects. There is good karma that comes with me making right choices, listening to the right voice. It's not just gifts from heaven like Santa Claus. I receive all kinds of good because my consciousness rises every time I choose to hear the voice of love. This is going to make me more prosperous, healthier, happier. Be excited that that's where you're going. Finally listening to the voice of God. This is what I've been needing to learn all along, and here it is. God's voice and no other. multiple voices of the ego wants nothing but your destruction. The one voice of God wants nothing but your salvation. I give thanks that in this moment I'm learning and now committed to following the voice of love. And one more step, being the voice of love for others. I will listen to that voice for me, but I will become the manifestation of that voice through as an example for others. Hallelujah. And so it is. Which, hallelujah? Instead of just following, hearing the voice of God, to become the voice of God. Yeah. Hallelujah. Yes! Thank you. We're going to do our closing prayer. I want to thank all of you for being with us, and all the support you guys give us by being here, by watching, by telling friends about the programs you like, and all that, and your financial donations and all. We greatly appreciate it. Please remember, and I know it sounds like a strange thing to hear from somebody, we're supposed to say, tell your friends to get. I'm not interested. I would like you simply to practice being intuitive enough to know who you might tell about this sort of thing, who you might introduce to our programs. You follow? Like, I'm not interested in numbers. I want quality. So I love, some people go and tell everybody, and they end up with a lot of strife because they're going and telling their friends that are this and background of this and that, and those people just start pounding on them with, oh no, that's he doesn't quote the Bible enough or whatever their thing is. And it's like, yeah, the more you get on my case, the less I'm going to quote the Bible. It's like, because thou shalt, judge and ye shall be judged. So there's one for you. So just I believe in that. Like when people say, I'm going to tell about you. No, listen, don't need it. I'm just doing my work. We're just doing our thing. And when someone feels like they're open, I'm not at all the type to convert people at all, at all. If I were dating someone and they were like, well, I'm 90% into this relationship, 10%, go. I'm not the type that wants to convert people or talk someone into liking me or whatever. I like to just be and just share this. And so if you intuit that someone might resonate, that's a good thing. You share it with them. And it's a good thing for you to watch, because if you do that with 10 people and 9 of them will never speak to you again, you might want to work on your intuition. Think about it, Yeah, not having a great track record here. And that's how I am. I do not walk around and tell people to check out certain books being insensitive to where they're at. It's really important to be sensitive to where they're at. It's not righteous for you to convert a Christian into Buddhism or vice versa. It's like, wait, what are you doing? So, just being that example as best you can, but thank you. We're going to take up our collection. We ask you simply to be as generous as you can be. We greatly appreciate it. And those of you who travel and have traveled great distances, the people that are consistently coming, locals, I love that. It's just great because we're part of this community. But there's also those who travel great distance and you feel a call and you feel a resonance and you come here and you share with us. Bless you. And, it really means a lot to me that something in you trusted enough. But it's not in Michael. It's in something that we're co-creating. And to me, it's all about anchoring the presence of God. And that's a good thing for you. If you never watch me or our programs again, but you walk closer to God because of something you heard, mission accomplished. Okay? So your love offerings, please. Just breathing into that. The prayer is on your bulletins as well as posted online. Together, please. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Thank you. While they're passing those around, a couple of quick announcements. Remember, we have our chaplain circle after the service. So if a person's interested in receiving a healing, they can do that. Or you can, the folks that are passing the baskets around, typically they're chaplains. You can ask one of them to sit with you and pray with you or counsel with you briefly. Also, we have the crystal bed sessions in the healing room outside here. So if a person's interested, especially if you're visiting the area, you might want to take advantage of that. You can talk to the admins in the office or the bookstore. And our bookstore, I'm really appreciative. I haven't said this in a long time, but I really appreciate that the board supports the idea of keeping everything probably on average 30% less expensive than shopping elsewhere. It's not to say don't shop elsewhere. Absolutely. You know, if you're called to buy something, buy it wherever you find it. But I'm just saying we don't have the taxes because of our nonprofit status, but also we tend to try to price things as reasonably as possible. And if you're watching us on social media and whatever other formats, you know, try to spread it out a little. Don't just watch us on YouTube. Get on our mailing list as well. Or if you're watching us on Facebook Live, also check out our YouTube library because we have hundreds of videos there. And they're in playlists. So it can help you kind of go and slot into a certain topic if you'd like. Remember to try to arrive 5 or 10 minutes before service, those of you who attend locally, because that's the best part of the service that the people online cannot experience. Just kidding. It's usually just local announcements that we do during that time, but it's also sometimes a song that we'll play. All right, so let's see. I think that was it for all the announcements. Let me ask just briefly, can anybody share what you learned or heard today that made the most sense or what you gained most out of? Yes, dear.
Hearing the voice of God. That was the...
Yeah. That is your thoughts and experiences. That is the voice of God. If it's loving, you were listening to the voice of God. If it wasn't, you weren't. Simple. Yes.
Confidence comes from choosing the voice of love.
Being confident and gaining confidence by listening to the voice of love. This is so practical. I love this. Yes. Being and becoming the embodiment of the voice of God. Yes. Letting go of the ego. You don't just wish it were gone, the ego. You choose to say, I see you and I have no interest. You don't hate it. You retire it for lack of work. Like there's just nothing here. Yeah, but yeah, and bye. Like no resistance, no hate. Yes? Yeah. No need to overthink your grocery choices. Nice. In the back.
I believe that the most profound thing that I got from you today, thank you, is that you are not the body. And that I think is where a lot of people get somewhat confused.
Yeah.
Because yes, we're down in the third-dimensional 3D world. We have to survive. But we have to remember that the higher thoughts
Right.
come from this incredible part of ourselves that is functioning through us.
Right.
As you walk through the day,
Right.
you have to radiate that love, not just consciously, but allow it to touch the lives of others, whether
Right.
we see them or whether we engage with them.
Right. So repeat it once more, but leave off the Michael said.
I'm sorry?
Say it again without the beginning of that Michael said, that you liked what Michael said.
Well, the greatest
Just say it as a truth.
the realization is that
Start there.
we must
Start with we.
understand we are not the physical flesh, male, female body. That is not our true identity.
Right.
And once we understand that, then everything else falls into place.
Do you get that? Yes. So he just said, we are not a body. See? Now, is that true or not? True. Is it true because Michael said? No. So that's why I had him slice off the part about Michael's. It's all of you, all of us, say things as the truth. Now, I don't mean beat people up with it or preach it to them. I'm saying own it. It's the truth. So what he said is just like pure truth. We are not bodies. And then everything else he added to that. We're not bodies. We aren't. we're wearing them temporarily, but that's where the ego will make you think even those temporary things become you, that it sews in permanently, stitches itself permanently to us. No, I am not a body, I am free, for I remain as God created me. Yes.
This is something I've heard here before, and I believe it. If it's not the voice of God or love, then that's a cry out for it.
Mm-hmm. If it's not the voice of love, it's beautifully said and ironic in a way. If it's not the voice of love, it is a voice crying for love. So what should you do in such instances? I guess it's a cry for love, which is kind of funny. I don't think you should say that to the people crying for love. You know, honey, the way you've been treating me lately is clearly a cry for love. I don't think you should. I think you have to be stealthy. I do. You know, stealthy. Yes, in the back. Love, always the safest way to go. I mean, it's God, and it's consistent. It can vary in the sense of peace, joy, but it's always love. The ego's just flippant, jumping to every mood you go into. It makes you that mood and then beats you up in that space. And it just keeps everybody so fragmented. That's why we call it the difference between dismembering to remembering, pulling ourselves back together. Yes. Yes. Hi.
That love in the form of compassion, it does embrace like sadness or anger.
Yeah.
Meaning it can encourage and uplift.
Right.
But as long as we don't get lost in them.
Yes, it's like compassion. You're holding a space for a person at what level they're at. Just this is where they're at. And it is a cry for love. My mind receives these experiences, witnesses these things that people do, hurtful and whatever. And it comes towards us and we can go and react to it, which makes it real, seemingly real. It now is real for us. You're humiliating me. Now I'm humiliated. That's what that does. When you're trying to humiliate me and it's not going to happen, that's a different answer, isn't it? Why is it not going to happen? Am I not speaking loud enough to humiliate you? No, because it's not here. You said I'm blah, da, 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 but that's not the truth of God, right? It's just not the truth. So these things, we said this a couple weeks ago and a lot of you seem to enjoy it. The arrows come and they turn into rose petals and they shower upon us. They don't find a home, and which is partly what Krishna was saying. Let the arrows fly. You know, do everything with love. But he was also adding to that whole story, say no to hurtful behaviors. There was an invading tribe, and he said, all right, let's say no to them. You know, and Arjuna, his sidekick, was trying to project the whole thing about, but that's wrong. We're spiritual. And Krishna was saying, doing what you think is needed and what the next right thing is spiritual. Talking spirituality is not spirituality. They're coming in, they're wiping everybody out. We're going to say no to them. That's important to learn. To be able to say no is an act of love. Please stand for our closing prayer. How was your meditation? Were you able to do it? You see where you were listening to the voice of God? Right? Can you ramp it up instead of, oh, that was a nice thought. The voice of God, like, wow, that's not any small thing. You were being Moses and any other great being who listened to the voice of God. You may or may not go out and write the Tao Te Ching or, A Course in Miracles. That's not the point. You're being a beautiful channel when you do that. But remember, those other voices own. That's not an accident. That is the voice of the ego, and I could choose to listen to it. And I usually do. I notice that I've often done it, but not anymore. I see it, surrender it, replace it. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love of God. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. wherever we go. God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Amen. Peace be with you all. Thank you.